world-class players. We want to develop national teams and a professional league, both on the boys, girls, men's, and women's side that become world-class. So, yeah, that's part of the goal. But the first thing is to get more kids playing soccer than ever before and keep them playing it. And that goes back to their environment. And their environment has other people involved that we need to continue to support and help work on behalf of the player.
And when you were talking about that whole idea of how to connect with the player, I was thinking back to when I was a sophomore in high school. My high school had a lot of teams. I mean, there was the varsity, the JV. There was the sophomore team that actually even had B games. There was a freshman A and a B team. So there were all these opportunities, which was really great to play sports at various levels. But of course, you need a lot of coaches, so they would recruit however they had to. And one year, it was one of my dad's friends was a coach, and I said to him, I didn't know he could coach basketball, and I don't remember if my dad said anything like, well, he can't really. And and I remember we had such a great season with him, and my friends and I, we still keep in contact, and a couple of us that were on that team still talk about him. He was a psychologist, and he happened to be the friend of the head coach that said, well, I need somebody to take this other squad. So he said, sure, I'll do it. And I honestly can't think of anything he taught us about basketball. Mm-hmm. I think he just pulled it all out of us, because after all, we were 15 going on 16 by then. It's not as if we hadn't played a million hours of basketball, since we were 6 years old. And it was just his ability, because he was trained for that. And it just occurred to me now, I'm like, boy, we always had such a great time with Mr. Dawson. Like, why on earth was that probably my best basketball experience? Because he wasn't even a coach. Well, he was a coach. It just didn't happen to be for a sport. He was a coach, period. And that's what I like to, that's what I love most about this show right here, is when you pull those stories up and you realize, oh yeah, that's why that worked. It wasn't what we thought.
That's a great point, and we're doing it well after the fact. We're doing it down the line of our lives, looking back. And in Germany, running a club with 20 some odd soccer coaches, one of the very best coaches that we had was the one who struggled with the 13 and 14-year-olds more than anyone else. And it was interesting because this coach has gone on to become a very well-known coach in the context of German and international soccer. And he started out in our club and had a wealth of knowledge and a great opportunity for our players to develop through his background, his experiences. He put together very effective training sessions, but he was dealing with adolescent teenagers, and he stayed the course. He was one who had beliefs, and he had an approach that we also believed in. So many times we'd sit in the office and he would just have to vent. He would just have to let the steam off that he had experienced out on the field with 13 and 14-year-old boys behaving like 13 and 14-year-old boys. And it was years later that we saw this particular core of players that had played for him over 3 or 4 years. They kept coming back to him, to me, to our club, and saying, this guy, this coach, he made all the difference in my playing, in my experience, and in some cases in my life. And this was when they were late teenagers or in their early 20s heading off to university. So at the moment, he just struggled to think about how more effective he could be and how he was doing. But he was one of the very best we had, and they didn't get that feedback in the moment. They weren't able to reflect at that moment. But later on, the power of that experience came back. So the message is that, you may not always get it in that moment, and you may not always have that sense that everything you're doing is right. But this reflection afterwards and after the fact by your players is the indicator. and maybe need to be in it a little bit longer to see if that feedback comes or doesn't, or what it looks like. But you just touched on it, right? I don't remember the science teacher who inspired me to enjoy science, although I never thought I would enjoy science. It wasn't because that was the best textbook that I ever saw, or what was on the board was the greatest, chalk and slate learning environment I ever saw. It was because this person, this human being, did something to inspire us, and anybody can do that, whether you're an expert or not.
Yeah, and I think also for grassroots coaching, it's okay when you talk about that coach you mentioned that was having at the beginning a difficult time with middle schoolers, which that just about killed me. So as following my daughters up from 8 and 9-year-olds, 7 and 8s, 9, 10s, all of a sudden I followed them up to the middle school. Oh, that was horrible. I mean, I was horrible. Okay, it just was something that I didn't click. It wasn't working. But I learned so much, and because I have extra daughters, I cycled right back down to the 9-year-olds to start with the younger ones, and found my spot, and really kind of learned a lot from it. And I think it becomes so easy then. In fact, I probably said the fewest things I've ever said. We didn't win any more games, but that was the first time that I've had a kid they abandoned. I was just going to some restaurant in town, and 2 kids came running up. I wasn't even their coach. I just filled in one day, and they remembered it. And that's really the point there, is that, how were they, and they probably don't even know why they ran up to me, okay? Maybe this was 5-6 years ago. Maybe now they do, but all the coaches, I mean, I'm just not that good that I'm the only person doing that. There's so many people that can do what I do. But that's the thing, is that, the gift card end of the year, that's nice. That everyone, they pass the hat, they give it to the coach. But that's not what it is. I think when people realize what you're talking about, it's going to lead to the point where there are going to be hundreds of kids that you'll just know years from now are thinking about what you did for them. It's powerful. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left, and you started talking about Germany, and I definitely wanted to hear about that, because that is, you are at the mothership there, in Europe with soccer and the culture. What did that teach you, that experience?
Oh, that's a great question. I was coaching, playing, and also, as I mentioned, took over the leadership of a club in Dusseldorf in the early 2000s, so 2001, 2002, right at the start of the reformation of the German Federation, which was based on a need to create more successful teams and grow the game and improve the quality of players. And to do that, it was about improving the quality of coaches and environments and everyone else involved. So really, culturally, it's a different place. Soccer plays a role equal to, if not greater than, many of the national sort of programs that take place, whether it's politics or entertainment. Soccer, at some point, is above all of it. It is something that is really lived and breathed. But what the German Federation did in that moment was they restructured, reorganized, reformed the game from top to bottom. Everything that was connected to it, everything that was assessed as needing improvement, was improved in great detail, and provided an amazing process of support and guidance, and gave it time. And I think if you use the 2014 World Cup win as the indicator of success, and that's only one, and the 2-6 hosting of the World Cup and the 2-10 successes in South Africa. On the men's side, you look at 2 women's World Cup championships in that period. You look at the development of the Women's Pro League and the sustained improvement in that league. Everything was done deliberately, step by step, and was given time. The idea of this instant gratification wasn't expected, and it wasn't part of the plan, and it wasn't part of the daily cultural conversation. So we were, in our roles, we felt informed, we felt engaged, we felt supported, as club leaders, and there are 32 or so thousand clubs in Germany, and everyone was on the same page because there's one federation, there's one structure, everything is standardized, and we all had a social responsibility to bringing the game further and doing so with the leadership of the federation. And as that evolved, it became more and more clear that where we were headed was the right direction. It became more and more clear that there was a whole new level of spirit and enjoyment and support in this game, and the culture just took another step further in its real embodiment of soccer. So a lot of things, from emotional connections, excitement, to everybody rallying behind national teams and the pro teams, to the little rec program around the corner and how the kids, the coaches, the parents engaged. I'll give you a quick example. They started the fair play rules, and everything for 10-year-olds and younger, the basic idea is that there are no referees. The coaches help the players make their own decisions when it comes to governing the game and the rules and how the rules are implemented and applied. The parents have to stand 5 meters behind any of the lines. So there isn't this encroachment on the field, or the chair with the first 2 legs on the field and the back 2 legs off the field. 5 meters behind any line. And it wasn't meant to put people in their place. It was meant so the players could have a comfortable environment that they could actually engage in the game and learn through the game in. So you've got 0 referees, you've got parents moved away from the sidelines, you've got the coaches helping the players. No scores, no standings. And it was about loving the game and learning the game. So these are, a simple example. There are many, many examples that we can look at. But the mistake we sometimes make is because it worked in that country, it will work here. And that's not the case. We in our globalized society, which we have now, we have to look at best practice, not only nationally, but also globally, and think about how best practice can inform us benefiting the American player, because that's at the end of the day what we're all here for.
And again, we have such a very different, we'll end the show on this point, but a different concept of time and the expectations of seeing results, that, we've got a country that's really only been formed in its, current ownership for, 250 years. You go to Europe, you can find all kinds of things that are only 250 years old. I mean, it's just a very different mindset. When when people say, "Oh, I've never seen that around here." Well, how long you lived here? Oh, a long time, like almost 7 years. That's a long time. And I used to talk to a lot of homeowners about complaints about things, and I would hear those things. I'm like, and that's when it occurred to me. I kept thinking, "Wow, a long time. You've been here that long?" I said, "Oh yeah, almost. I've been here since the late '90s." Like, okay, when that neighborhood was built. So I think that is an important part, like you say, of all the stuff you talked about here today, is that it has to be done for the American culture, recognizing that we do like things awful quick. And what you are talking about, they're proven things, they're not experimental, and in some ways they're not new, they're just new to our awareness, on a regular basis.
That's right.
Frank, this has been a really great discussion. I have so many things I wanted to get into with you, but I hope you'll come back on again, because I think what we talked about here was, to say the very least, enlightening to coaches for all sports, spectators and parents, and we know that the U.S. Soccer is heading in the right place.
Well, it's been thoroughly enjoyable, Dave, and I greatly appreciate, like I said earlier, you giving us the opportunity to speak with your audience. I'll gladly come back anytime. I'm sure, as you said, there are all kinds of topics that we can discuss further, and also get in a little bit deeper to some of the ones we discussed here today. So again, thank you very much for having me.
Great. Well, good night, everybody. That was Frank Tschan with U.S. Soccer, and they're definitely doing things right over there. Have a great evening, everyone.
So it started out, for God knows where. I guess I don't know when I get there.